This is part 3 of the chapter 4 lectures on fungi. We left off talking about the Basidiomycota, which include mushrooms and shelf fungi and bracket fungi. They basically look like mushrooms growing on the side of a log or a tree. Here is the life cycle. I think we went over this also. Just make sure that you know that the entire mushroom is called the basidiocarp, and the little filaments on the underside of the mushroom that are kind of dark, that's where the spores are produced. That's the basidia. So the basidia, the basidiocarp and the basidia are the reproductive structures of the Basidiomycota. All right, so now we're going on to the Glomeromycota. The Glomeromycota is mostly known for forming a symbiotic relationship with the roots of plants. About 80% of all plants have mycorrhizae growing in a symbiotic relationship with their roots. So what happens is the Glomeromycota form a symbiotic relationship with the plant roots. And by doing that, they increase the surface area so the plant can actually absorb more nutrients and minerals and more water. And to describe the relationship, it says they form a mutually beneficial association where the plants supply the carbon source and the energy in the form of carbohydrates to the fungus. So the plants are giving food to the fungus, and the fungus supplies minerals from the soil to the plant. The Glomeromycota only reproduce asexually. They do not reproduce sexually. Okay, and then the Deuteromycota reproduce asexually by the production of asexual conidiospores. And this is a picture of one, I want to say it's Penicillium. Hold on just a minute. Okay, I'm back. I just wanted to make sure this was Penicillium. It is. I thought I remembered it from the slides that we have in lab on campus. Okay, so let me write that for you. Why is this not working? Here we go. So this is a Penicillium species, which is, of course, where the antibiotic penicillin originates from. Okay, so this is an example of a bracket fungus or a shelf fungus. They look like mushrooms, but they're growing on the side of a log or a tree. And this slide is just saying that fungi are good decomposers. Human uses for fungi, what you're looking at here is a morel, which is an edible fungus. Mushrooms are edible also, and truffles, but morels and truffles are more, you hear them more used in gourmet cooking. But some fungi are parasites that infect insect pests, so we can use them to help, with controlling insect populations. Fungi can be used. Yeast are used to produce beer and wine and bread. Fungi are used to make antibiotics like the penicillium. They're important as research subjects. We eat fungi. We eat mushrooms, morels, truffles, and probably some other different ones. And most plants depend on fungi, and humans depend on the plants. So that's another way. And this is showing you the mycorrhizae that's formed by the Glomeromycota and the roots of plants, and how the Glomeromycota increase the surface area of the plant roots. So this is a plant root, And these are mycelia. So the more of these mycelia that you have, the more surface area to absorb water and nutrients. Let's see, the endophytes are fungi that live inside tissue without damaging the host plant. They release toxins that repel herbivores or confer resistance to environmental stress factors such as infection by microorganisms, drought, or heavy metals in soil. So some fungi and plants they have a mutualistic relationship where the fungus actually protects the plant from being eaten or gives it resistance to bacteria or heavy metals, that kind of thing. Lichens, that's another symbiotic relationship. The fungus is either from the Ascomycota or the Basidiomycota, but the photosynthetic organism in the relationship is either an alga or algae or a cyanobacterium. You've seen lichens before, I'm sure, just maybe didn't know what they were. This is a lichen that's called the fruticose variety. This one is called the foliose variety, and this is called the crustose variety. So crustose, because it looks like crust, just flat against the rock or the tree. And this one is foliose because it looks like foliage a little bit. And then this one is, I'm sorry, I got them flipped. This one is foliose and that one is fruticose. I'm sorry. Flip these. So C is foliose because it looks like leafy foliage, and B is fruticose because it has fruiting bodies. It's usually more like hairy looking and almost like Spanish moss. Okay, so this is showing you a cross section through a lichen. It shows you the upper cortex, which is fungal hyphae. Then it shows you where photosynthesis occurs here in B. The medulla of the fungal hyphae is C. And then the lower cortex, which provides protection. So it shows you basically everything is fungus, A, C, and D, except for the algae or the cyanobacteria, which is found in region B. Okay, so you may have seen leaf harvesting ants, leaf cutting ants. These are the leaf cutting ants of Central and South America. They actually farm fungi. They cut discs of leaves from plants, pile them up in gardens, and then they cultivate the fungi on those leaves because the fungi feed off of those dead leaves, dead and dying leaves. And then the ants eat the fungi. Okay, so parasitism is when if a fungus is a parasite, then the fungus attacks a host and the host gets a disease or maybe dies. And if the relationship is commensalism, the fungus lives off of the host, but the host is not affected. There's some plant infections of fungi. You see when oranges go bad, you know what that looks like, I'm sure. It says humans depend on crops. Many plant pathogens are fungi that cause tissue decay and eventual death of the host. And just fungi can spoil food. I know that some fungal infections of crops are called rust and some are called smut. And then there's one called ergot, E-R-G-O-T, which can infect rye. Fungal infections in humans, there's mycotoxicosis, which is the poisoning of humans and other animals by fungal toxins, called mycotoxin. Mycetismus is the ingestion of toxins from mushrooms. And then there are people who have allergies to molds and mildews. Ringworm is a fungal infection. It is not an actual worm. You can see that in picture A. And then the Trichophyton violaceum is shown in picture. I'm sorry, I got interrupted twice on this lecture, but I paused it. Now I'm back. Um, we left off, let's see, B, it causes, the one in picture B is a microscope image, but it causes a scalp infection. And then histoplasma, I'm sorry. Histoplasma capsulatum is an ascomycete that infects airways and causes symptoms similar to influenza or the flu. So these are just 3 different types of fungal infections. There's also, which is not listed here, but there's also yeast infections, which are fungal infections. And that can be like thrush, which is a yeast infection in the mouth that babies get a lot. Or it can be like just yeast infections in the, genital region. All right, opportunistic fungal infections. Opportunistic mycoses are fungal infections that are common mostly in people who have a compromised immune system. AIDS would be one reason, but there's other yeast infections are more common in people with a compromised immune system, like a diabetic. Okay. Antifungal medications help to cure fungal infections. This is a picture of Candida, which is the yeast infection. Some species are naturally resistant to antifungal medications, just like bacteria can be resistant to antibiotics. Other species may be susceptible to a particular medication but develop resistance over time. And then that is it. The practice questions: why might it be more difficult to develop antifungal medications than antibiotics? The main reason is because fungi have a similarity to fungal cells have a similarity to animal cells, and so what you have to do is make sure the antifungal medication doesn't kill your cells along with the fungus, and that's kind of hard to do. What characteristics do fungi have in common? They all have spores and hyphae. Um, What are the phyla of fungi? Okay, let's see if I can name them. The Zygomycota, Basidiomycota, Glomeromycota, Ascomycota, Chytridiomycota. I think I got them all. But if I didn't, I'm sorry. What roles do fungi play in the ecosystem? And we talked about they're decomposers, and that's the main role that they play. Some common fungal parasites and pathogens. The yeast infection that we talked about, which can be thrush or yeast, regular yeast infection. And then there were 3 diseases that we discussed. They can cause a ringworm, they can cause scalp infections, and they can even have, there's a fungal infection that causes symptoms like the flu. And just remember that pathogens are disease causing. So pathogen wouldn't be something that causes an allergy. Allergies to molds and mildews, the molds and mildews are not pathogens. A pathogen is disease causing. So a ringworm is a pathogen. Well, it's the name of the disease, but the fungus that causes ringworm is a pathogen.